everybody. Thank you so much for attending this workshop on niche selection. This is something that I've been asked about so often, and I personally have a very fringe opinion on niches, which is I don't think they're a good idea ever. But I know that that's not true for a lot of other creators, and that's why I was so excited to get Justin on board. Justin has a whole ton of accolades. I'll let you do that in a second. Suffice to say, expert, niche expert, creator expert, who's going to teach you all about how and when to choose a niche.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. For a quick bit about myself, so my background is in copywriting, which over time has morphed a little bit more into the strategy side of things. And we're going to be talking about niche selection, like how to determine your niche. You guys submitted some awesome questions beforehand that we're going to cover at the end of this, so I'd love to go over those as well. We'll be going through what a niche is. I mean, you're pretty familiar with that. When you should niche, when you shouldn't niche, more importantly, and essentially how to actually determine what your niche is and how to state it clearly, what you should do with it, and then also how to come up with a sort of upskilling plan to really present yourself as an expert in your niche. Because of course you can't just start calling yourself in this particular niche if you don't have experience in it. People will see right through that. So we'll actually have the link down in the description below this video. I know many of you will have already gotten the workbook and the worksheet accordingly beforehand. We're talking about niche selection. A big reason why we're doing this is actually a question that not just people in copywriting or content writing, but overall with lots of freelancers have about essentially how to pick your niche, how to define it. Questions like, can you write in 2 different niches? Which niches are the most profitable? So that's really why we're doing this today, is to not only help you pick out your niche and clearly state it. One thing that I primarily do, and the way that I describe myself, is I do say that I help SaaS tools, which is software as a service programs, drive user acquisition and reduce churn with a unique blend of copywriting and customer-led growth strategies. Now, that quote is in blue for a reason, because that is my niche statement, and so we will be looking at the structure of that and, of course, how to make your own later on in the presentation. But yeah, essentially in the first 30 days, getting to that consistent 5K a month mark, and then now to where I am in the first year, which is a steady 12,000 in retainers per month. What makes you really successful in freelancing is your skill to an extent, and especially in content and copywriting. You do need to be a good writer. Of course, you need to edit. You need to, not be making tons of mistakes. But really, the best freelancers that you see making a lot of money online are very good at marketing themselves.
I know for a lot of my viewers watching this, selling yourself, this mindset of going from, oh, I'm kind of good at what I do, to I deserve to get paid for what I do, that's a really tough mindset. So I'd love to hear, Justin, how did you get that in your first month to say, you know what, actually, I don't have a portfolio, I don't have experience, but I know that what I do is valuable and I can use that to make money. What did that process look like for you?
This idea that I'm going to charge more because I'm valuable, that is true. But the best way for me to look at why I charge more is because when I charge more, it means that I can give myself more time as the person delivering it to make sure that I deliver that project for my client as great as possible. If I just quote that job right down to, here's the absolute minimum that I want to make on this per hour, I quote it low to get the job, then I put myself into a position where I feel rushed, the work comes out sloppy, the client's unhappy. It's literally a lose-lose for everyone. So when you do quote more, it's not just this idea of, and I think this is really perverse in copywriting, especially people think about, it's a super lucrative area to get into. It's not this idea of, I just want to make a bunch of money. It's I'm literally securing the fact that this project is going to be successful because I have the extra resources to put into it.
You've given yourself the time to just go into it with value first, not a money first approach.
As an example, that project over $5,000, that was for SaaS onboarding, essentially email sequences. I'd never written them before, but I took the money that I got from selling that project, I got paid 50% up front, and I went and spent that on training, professional training, to make sure that I was really going to do a good job delivering that project. And I did, and I still got from that one of the best testimonials that I ever have. So if you know that, you may not be super confident charging a certain rate for a certain project, but you know that you know how to go into the internet, find somewhere that can teach you how to do it, well, then that's what gives me the confidence to know that I can charge this because I know I'm going to deliver this project super well. Going into niching, the 3 biggest reasons why you want to do it are, 1, so you can stand out from your competition. I'm sure you've looked at Upwork, job boards, online, and you will see someone billing themselves as copywriter for e-commerce or a copywriter for SaaS or an email marketing specialist. Although in our mind, like it's really a marketing thing overall, because again, your best skill is research. You can go and learn skills very quickly. You can go and learn niches very quickly. Reality is though, clients don't always see it that way. So they look at it, and if they're given the choice between, person A and person B, person A speaks a little bit more to me and what I'm after, they're definitely going to take that. Similar to that is focused marketing. And so the best example that I can give here is the idea of CPR, which we probably all learned back in school. If you're out in public, you see someone fall over and get hurt. When you call or you ask someone to call 911, you call out that person, but you describe them and you ask that particular person to go call 911. You say, hey, woman in the blue jeans and the white blouse. And so you speak very specifically to that person because you want that specific person's attention. And when you do focus in on that market, one thing I'm going to be telling you to do is actually talk to these people and find out what their problems are. But you can speak very, very intelligently to their exact problems. Like for me, I sell everything over sales calls, especially when people are paying several $1,000s to work with you. Do not just send your proposals off over email. Quick tip. And of course, the third thing, which we spoke a little bit about already, is increased profitability so that you have more time and resources to deliver your project more effectively. A family doctor makes maybe 60% of what a specialist might make. So they have specialized knowledge, they get paid more for that. And of course, there is an increased profitability. Now, before we get into actually choosing your niche, one thing that I do want to point out is that as a beginner copywriter, you shouldn't jump straight into niching for a few different reasons. If you are starting out, then you need to be getting practice doing paid jobs. You need to build up your client base, referral opportunities, testimonials, case studies. And if you niche in right away just because you heard online that some particular niche of some sort, whether it's writing in crypto or finance or medical or whatever it is, and so you don't want to limit your pool of opportunities, that's really one of the big reasons. The second reason is that because you don't have that expertise, literally, you don't necessarily have the authority to charge more for what you're doing. And this goes back to the idea of, the specialized knowledge. And then thirdly, and honestly, I think this reason is really underrated, if we're being honest, but you don't really know what you like and don't like yet. There's a couple of different ways you can niche. One being into a particular industry, but then there's also the type of output, which is, I'm an email copywriter, or I do, strictly web copy, or you do, about pages or whatever it is. I don't recommend niching into both, but the reality is that you want to explore essentially different types of output to see what you like. You might want to explore different types of niches because honestly, legitimately enjoying what you're doing is going to be playing a huge role in it. So if you are starting out and you're rather new in copywriting, content writing, don't niche too early. Once you get to the point where you have 3 successful projects, 3 case studies, and 3 testimonials, essentially within a given niche, then you can go into that particular niche and niche down in it and become an expert in that field. So we're going to go through how essentially you're going to figure out what your niche is or what it should be. And really what it comes down to at the end of the day is 3 different criteria, which is market needs and desires, niches you're familiar with, and skills that you either already have or you're willing to acquire.
I'm laughing because this is actually really similar to a Venn diagram I have created with slightly different. Can you go back real quick? Because I think the one I've done is the top one is like things I enjoy writing about. The bottom right is things I can knowledgeably write about. And bottom left is things that people will value from value in the audience. And I just find it very funny that we've independently come up with this, saying the same things.
Essentially, our first criteria is familiar niches. The reality is that all niches are fairly lucrative, fairly profitable, because usually one of 2 things happens. If you do pick a niche that is, let's say, more traditionally, stereotypically lucrative, like the financial, crypto, medical area, you'll just have more competition. Whereas if you imagine yourself, for example, you are the only person in your country writing about copy for a paint magazine, how many people do you think are doing that? Not many. And so you absolutely can come into a smaller, let's say, niche that people may not consider to be otherwise traditionally profitable, but you can also completely dominate it. What we're going to do here is in the worksheet, which you'll have, essentially what we'll do is we'll go through listing out the different niches that you are familiar with, niches that you like, industries, groups, types of people, everything like that. And that'll be your first criteria. Now, for our second criteria, it's going to be the market needs and desires. Now, this is really and truly just understanding this simple graphic right here, that like anything in life, we're all in a current state and we all have somewhere that we want to be. If you're sitting at home right now and you're hungry, right? What's the solution to your problem? Maybe it's going and buying a hot dog and eating it, right? That's pretty much how we make just about any kind of decision that we want to do in life. The difference here is that you are the middleman in between. You're the mechanism that's going to get your client or prospect from point A to point B in that final state that they're in. One thing I want to stress here is that you don't need to come up with some original idea when we're looking at what it is that your target audience and your target market wants. Think of the hamburger, right? Lots of different restaurants make hamburgers. Nobody owns the hamburger, but the restaurants that do better than the other ones are who can cook a better hamburger. So you can absolutely simply improve upon existing solutions and do very, very well. You do need to go out though, and you need to figure out what it is the actual problems are that people are having. There are ways to do this that make it easier. You can reach out over LinkedIn. You can offer people your advice in exchange for 10, 15 minutes of their time. You can do this over messaging. But once you have your target sort of figured out and who you want to be working with, you absolutely do want to assess what that market's needs and desires are and simply ask them. Be very transparent. It's not a sales call to say, I'm getting into the industry. I'd love to pick your brain. Have a couple of questions about what your problems are that you're facing, what's stopping you from getting more sales, what's stopping you from growing, whatever it is, and just having a very frank conversation, and they'll tell you. And if you need to bargain with, free advice, maybe a blog article or an overview or whatever it is, use your skills and offer that in exchange, and they'll do it with you. They absolutely will. For the third criteria, it is going to be the skills that you either have right now or will acquire. So again, going into the worksheet, we're going to list these out. But just as an example for myself, when I was listing these out initially, I was looking at conversion rate optimization. It was something I'd done a little bit before dabbling in copywriting. I was already really big into customer-led growth strategies, which is really essentially centered around doing a lot of user research, project management, and then of course, building out these ideas of lead gens and funnels and everything like that. Whatever these skills are that you come up with, they don't necessarily have to be related to content writing, to copywriting or writing in any sense. A lot of the skills that you already have, you absolutely can leverage to come up with a stronger solution for your client. And the other thing is, when we talked about research, your ability to go out and find a solution, then it really gives you the ability to kind of say yes to everything when you're talking to clients, and you can take on more work from them. The more work you take on, the more hooks that you essentially build into them, and the more valuable you become for them. So that is our third criteria. Once you've actually gone through the three different criteria, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the overlap between all three of these things. Now, you'll have a few questions that you can answer for yourself, and you'll see the statements here on the screen, but the first one being, here's the niche that I'm interested in or know very well. Pick one of those. The second one is going to be the biggest problem this niche is experiencing is, what is that problem? Again, preferably you're going out and talking to at least 8 to 10 people coming up with that problem, ideal clients or prospects in your niche. Thirdly, you want to figure out what their desired state is. This is where they want to get to. This is the solution that can provide it. Do you have the skills already, or does the problem that they want solved overlap with the skills that you have? Finding that overlap is really where you're going to figure out where your niche is. Then you're going to look at actually building your niche statements. So if you remember back at the beginning, I believe the one that I was using is, I help SaaS business owners experience member attrition to become churn positive and grow their MMR. But essentially, there's a few different ways that you can actually structure your niche statements and explain what it is that you do. So the first one here in the top left is going to be our target niche, group, and industry, plus their desired state and their result. So for example, I help SaaS business owners. That's the target. I focus on SaaS almost exclusively, drive user acquisition and reduce churn. The other one is helping SaaS business owners experience member attrition, become churn positive, and grow their monthly recurring revenue. So 3 elements here: the target niche, the current problem where they are, and their desired state. Our third one will be the target niche, plus the desired state and result, and a problem if you really want to focus in on that. So here I say I help SaaS business owners drive user acquisition and reduce churn without wasting money on paid ads. So if I know, as an example, bidding something on Upwork or in conversations with clients, for example, and they're saying that, we don't really want to get into paid ads. We don't know if it's going to be a waste of money. It's confusing or whatever. That's when I might use something like that where I can say without and specifically attack whatever that particular pain point is that I know they have. Then I can essentially just treat myself as the solution to that without needing those paid ads. It's a really good way to do that. And then the last one's the fourth one. It's also the wordiest because it's longest. I'll talk in a minute about where you put these, but essentially that is having your target niche group and industry, plus their desired state and the result, and the mechanism, which is effectively just how you get it done. So for an example, I help SaaS business owners drive user acquisition and reduce churn without wasting money on paid ads through a unique blend of copy and customer-led growth strategies. And again, the reason why I might do something like that is depending on the client who I'm speaking to. If I know that they're looking for someone who they specifically want a copywriter, okay, great. I'm going to throw in there saying a unique blend of copy. So they know very specifically it's a copywriter. If someone's going out there and like, hey, they're very growth focused, they're looking for a growth marketer, let's say like growth and scalability and acquisition, all that, I might use a little more of like the growth terminology. So you just kind of change it up a little bit.
I think this is so good to highlight like how important that research is, because not only are you finding out what those problems are, you're also learning the language that these people are using to describe their own problems. Like customer-led growth strategies is a phrase I personally have never heard before, but I'm sure that the business owners you're speaking to, this is something that they think about and talk about with that exact phrase every single day. So they look at that and you're not just communicating, I can solve this. You're saying, I know what problems you have. I can speak your language, and that engenders, I can imagine, just so much trust in you to actually give them a solution that works.
When I am talking to someone on the phone, doing that particular sales call, I always ask them first to say like, hey, what is it that made you want to have this call today? What is it that you got going on in your business, and what problems have you been experiencing? I'll ask those 3 questions before I tell them what I do, because then depending on what they say, I completely change the way that I talk about myself and what I do. If they're saying something around email marketing, well, then immediately just in my mind, I'll change the statement that I'm going to use to say like, oh, I'm helping people with email marketing, blah, 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 right? And so it sounds like I'm just happen to be the perfect solution for them. Yeah, it's a very just simple sort of little trick, but it's very, very effective, and it's been really, really good for sales calls. Now, when I'm doing something, for example, in my LinkedIn profile, I'm going to use one that's a bit shorter. I'm going to use something a little bit more straightforward. You're going to have character restrictions depending on where you go. But if I'm doing something more of like a cold pitch email or an intro to someone that was a referral from me, I'm definitely going to go a lot more targeted if I know more about them. If I don't know more about them, I'm definitely not going to say something like without using paid ads. For all I know, they believe in paid ads and think it's the solution to everything. One thing that I'll talk about here is essentially becoming a little bit of an expert in your niche and building your upskilling plan. What you're going to do is you have the problem figured out. You have your niche. Now ask yourself, has anyone in this niche already solved this problem? If they have, you're basically going to do competitor research or say market research and break down what it is that they're doing. How are they offering it? How much are they charging for it? What are the deliverables that are included in it? Look at their social media. A lot of these people are essentially sharing online a lot of tips and advice. You can get a very good understanding of how they're delivering this solution. Then you want to optimize on it and improve it. What I like to do is look at 1, the skills that you need to learn. 2, specifically mark down how you're going to learn it. So just as an example, if you wanted to get into an area of doing like content marketing, as an example, you can literally go on HubSpot and just look at their free courses for so many different things. You need to get yourself to just the sales call step. Once you convert that and you're getting paid and you win the job, then you can go and spend more money if you need to on like a proper, more fleshed out advanced program. I like to essentially plan it out and say, hey, here are all the skills that I need to learn. Here are the dates, set deadlines for yourself. But really and truly, you shouldn't need any more than 14 days to figure out the different skills and learn them that you're going to be using to deliver your niche. On the right, there is a shot of the worksheet. Be sure to have that open and use that. And from this whole presentation, this walks through everything that we talked about. And this is really the practical step-by-step portion of going through everything that we spoke about today. And lastly, once you do have that niche statement, I highly recommend, again, if you have the skills, you're feeling confident as the expert, go out there and put it on your LinkedIn, put it on your socials, make sure that you brand yourself accordingly when you go out there. And the other thing is just really be consistent with your upskill plan.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I do want to make a point of highlighting here how much of this is going to come down to you. You have to believe that you're capable of this. You have to believe that you're worth putting this work into. It's so tempting for so many people to just create content, post it on a place like Medium, and hope that your client finds you. The more strategy and the more effort you invest in yourself, the better off you're going to be in the long term, the happier you're going to be, and the more financially happy you're going to be as well. I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, believe in yourself and believe that you're worth learning all these lessons, that you are worth this money, that you deserve to reach out to these clients and say, hey, I am the answer to your problem. And have the confidence that if you're not yet, you will be in a couple of weeks. So just keep that in mind. Believe in yourself. You can do this. We've given you all the tools. You can now go out there and start bagging those dream clients.
The last thing we wanted to do is a few days ago, Zuli had shot out questions for you guys that you wanted us to cover.
Thank you if you submitted those, by the way. Those were awesome. I loved looking through those.
So the first question that we got was, can you be a successful freelance writer by writing in multiple niches? Yes, 100%. In fact, I encourage it. If you're new into freelance writing, you don't know what you don't know, you're not really sure which niche might work out better for you, you need to build up your customers, your case studies, your testimonials. Later on, I don't recommend it. It's not that you can't do it, but I don't recommend it because one, you're splitting your energies and which makes your marketing a lot more difficult. You're going to find that one's probably better for you, in which case I would recommend doubling down on the one that's better. At the beginning though, 100% I encourage it. Do different types of copy, different industries, different niches, 100%.
I do want to add my 2 cents to this to say that I am 4 years into my freelancing career, still in that beginning stage. I write for data science companies, I write for fintech, I write for healthcare, I write for agencies who have, tens of dozens of different clients, and I write for all of them. I'm aware what I'm giving up, which is, like when I was trying to do my website and trying to say like, okay, this is what I can do. It was really hard to say, oh, I write for what kind of company? What do I do for them? What problem do I solve? I was able to come up with something, but it's not as persuasive as it would be if I could say, I write for data science companies, I help XYZ, this is how I do it. The reason I've accepted that trade-off is because I personally love writing about many, many, many different things. That's me. That's why I have my fringe anti-niche belief. But again, I know that that's not true for a lot of people. So I will say it's possible to be a successful freelancer still in that early stage, but you should be aware, like I am, of what you're giving up by retaining the ability to write across multiple niches.
My point comes down more to like if you really want to focus in on like the higher earning potential, and really what you have to do is solve bigger and bigger problems. And in order to do that, you are going to be splitting your energies a little bit, but the bigger problems you can solve in a niche, the more profitable it'll become. If that's your definition of success, hitting a particular success metric and income, then that's kind of my point there, is it just depends on sort of what your goals are. The second question we had was, where do I start? I mean, there are a million things I could write about. How do I pick one? So really, with this question, I want to refer you back to criteria 1, 2, and 3 from the presentation, looking at the markets and niches that you're familiar with and the problems that they're having in those particular markets and niches. Then going into the skills that you have. Once you look at that and you pull all of that together, again, look in the center of where that Venn diagram kind of comes in together, and that's going to help you to make that decision there. Our third question was, what if I don't have expertise in any of the writing niches that are actually profitable? Presumably, not every writer has one or more serious interests that people will pay to read about. There are some that are more profitable than others, but if we're talking about one being, 98% profitable and the other one being 94% profitable, is that really a huge difference? It's not. You can absolutely dominate in smaller niches as well. What if I don't have any expertise in it? And for that, I would say, I'd refer you back to the upskilling plan, looking at the problems that are happening in a particular niche, looking at the solutions to it, and then reverse engineering and breaking down that solution and figuring out what the skills are that you need to learn to achieve that particular solution. You will 100% get the confidence to be able to deliver on that solution. Now, if by expertise you also mean experience in that, you haven't actually written in that niche before, you haven't delivered a solution in that niche, I do, when I actually work with people one-on-one, I do talk about doing like free or low-cost mini tests in order to get references, to get testimonials, and to get case studies. So there is a very easy way to do that, reaching out and getting preferably 3 small mini case studies of examples based on projects that you can deliver in 4 hours or less. So not committing yourself to doing a whole bunch of work, but going out there and providing real value to clients. And the nice thing about that is a lot of the time those turn into paid work anyways. If you are kind of coming to a point of, figuring out and defining your niche, define that, figure out what the problem is, and then preferably get your case studies and those mini case studies done in that particular problem that you want to solve.
I like this one. What about, sure, the niche has to be profitable, but isn't it more important to focus on one that is self-fulfilling rather than one that is going for rich rewards?
I think that the problem with this question is that it's implying a mutually exclusive scenario where either my niche will be profitable or I'll enjoy it. And I would strongly question whether or not the niche that you're thinking of can't be profitable. It absolutely can be. And so
that comes back basically to what you were saying earlier, right? Like if you're happy, if you're making enough money that you're happy with that and you're enjoying the work you're doing, you're successful. If you start feeling like, okay, I need more to consider myself successful, then you can maybe come back to this process, redefine it, go through your worksheet again, and make sure that you're doing something that you're working towards your definition of success.
I think any person that, asks like, hey, is this niche profitable? Or I don't think my niche is profitable, or I'm not getting clients. Like every freelancer that I've talked to, I can say the same question to. How many Upwork pitches have you submitted this week? How many potential clients have you sent messages to this week? Right? And a lot of them, I haven't, or, maybe one or two or something like that. It comes down to how you market it yourself. It comes down to your consistency. So even if you're more generalist, or if you're in a particular niche that isn't traditionally profitable, or it's a small niche or whatever it is, you can absolutely dominate these by being the best freelancer that client has ever hired, by getting good testimonials, by getting good case studies, by delivering good work because your skills are in research and you knew how to go out and find the solution and learn it and do an amazing job delivering it. By anticipating what problems might come up, by not asking them questions that you could have otherwise simply Googled. So all of these things, making their process of working with you smoother so they're not looking for the link to something that you sent them. Like all of these little things add up, and really the actual delivery part of it is like less than half, and how you are to simply work with is so much more. And that's where you become profitable. That's where you start getting the demand. You can raise your rates higher and kind of work on things that way.
Okay, so for people watching this at home, you've learned all the next steps, you've been kind of filling in the worksheet as you go. What's the next thing that people should do after watching this interview if they want to be successful?
Really, the next step is getting the worksheet, going through it, figuring out what your niche statement is, and figuring out your upskill plan if you don't already have those skills that you need. So the link to that, if you didn't get it from the email leading up to this, will be in the description down below. And if you ever have any questions, you want to ask me a little bit more about this, you can find me on LinkedIn as well as my email, which will be in the description as well down below.
Yeah, thank you everybody so much for watching this, and thank you especially if you submitted a question. This has been so fun, and Justin, thank you so much for taking the time to explain to us how to find a niche and how to be successful in it. And also, I really appreciate that you put such an emphasis on not just the price tag, but providing value both for your client and for yourself in your life. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I hope this was super helpful for everyone.
Yeah, all right. See you all in the next video. If you like this kind of thing, hit subscribe, leave a comment if you have any questions, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.